We are seven-handed in this first one. I'm under the gun with ace-king offsuit and raise it to $20. The low jack calls and hijack puts in a small 3-bet to $75. I flat and low jack calls as well. Three ways to a flop of king 10 deuce with two hearts. So I flop top pair with backdoor hearts as well as a backdoor straight draw. I check, low jack checks, and hijack overbets $300. And it's kind of a crappy spot as it feels like he's never bluffing, particularly because I have the nut flush blocker and he seems to be a value heavy profile. That said, I decide to call and low jack folds. Turn comes a queen of spades and he ends up jamming out of turn, but he's forced to take back that action as I mentioned to the dealer and the table that I haven't acted yet. On this card, I no longer beat anything. If he somehow went ballistic with queens on the flop, he just got there on the turn. So it feels like I'm either behind or chopping. I do take into account that he acted pretty quick on the turn, which I interpret as a, oh, what the heck, I have ace-king and let's just go with it type feel to it. With that in mind, I decided in that instance I wasn't folding, so rather than check calling a jam, I put in the $495 effective all in. He pretty quickly calls. We go to a river of a 3 of diamonds, I table, and it's no good as he flips over pocket aces. So I get overly married to this hand and I get stacked in the early get-go of the session. Next hand we are six-handed. I raise it to $20 from under the gun with 4-6 of spades. Everyone calls except for the big blind. We go 5 ways to a flop of 10-5-3 rainbow, so I flop open-ended with backdoor spades. Small blind leads for $40. I call, cutoff calls, and the other two players fold. 3 ways to a turn of a queen of diamonds. Small blind checks, I check, and cutoff checks as well. So get a free look at the river, which comes a 7 of diamonds. So make the straight. When small blind checks, I opt for a sizing of $150, pretty much shooting at any target that is a pair of 10s or better. Cutoff folds, and small blind assembles the chips and puts it in. I table my hand, and it's good. Next hand here, we are four-handed. I raise it to $15 from under the gun with Jack 10 offsuit and only the small blind calls. Heads up to a flop of 9-8-5 with 2 spades, so I flop open-ended on a fairly dynamic board. Small blind leads for $25. I call. We go to a turn of a queen of hearts, so I get there again this time, but on an earlier street, which is nice. He bets $50 with $320 back, and with such a juicy board and his awkward stack size, it's hard to make a standard type raise of 3x here, so I opt for the maximum and jam for his 370 effective. He thinks it through for a bit, and after some deliberation, he drops in several chips to signify a call. We go to a river of a deuce of spades, so not great, but I would have expected him to put the money in quicker had he had a flush draw. And after I turn my hand over, it's confirmed that he did not have spades as he mucks, and I drag in this pot. And the table broke after this, and I got moved to one of the 2 remaining tables. Next hand, we're 5-handed at the new table. Cutoff raises to $15. Small blind calls. I'm in the big blind with ace 10 of diamonds, and it could be a flat, but I opt for a more fun route of 3-betting to $75. Cutoff quickly calls, and big blind gets out of the way. We go heads up to a flop of 10-5-8 all spades. So a flop top pair on a monotone board. And nothing feels all that great here as I'm going to be putting in money on at least this one street. A down bet doesn't feel great and neither does betting a more middling or large bet size. Can check, but I opt to stay in flow and bet $50. He puts in the raise to $150 and I'm not a believer yet, so I call. Turn comes a 9 of diamonds. I check and he jams for $2,500, which covers me for my $1,500 effective. I do think it through for a bit, and it's just a tough call here, so I end up just letting it go. And when I do, he seems genuinely upset that I folded, so it looks like I was either dead or close to it. 3 quick ones. We're 5-handed, and I took down a small one with ace-7 of hearts on an ace-high board. Another one, we're 5-handed again. I opened it up to $20 with king-queen off, and I got 3-bet large to $85, and I let that one go. Last quick one from this trio of hands, we were 5-handed again, and I failed to have the camera on this one, so I apologize. It was a 4-way limp pot, and I was in the blinds with king 4 of spades. We go to a flop of queen 10-3 with 2 spades, so I flop a flush draw, and checks to late position, who bets $15. A player calls and I call and the one other player drops out. 3 ways to a turn of a 5 of spades, so I make the flush. I decide to donk lead for $50. Late position, who was the one that bet the flop, calls pretty quickly and the other player folds. River comes a blank 7 of hearts, and when he calls turn, I'm hoping he has a strong hand that he can't fold, such as top 2 or a lower flush. So I opt for a polarized sizing targeting that portion of his range, and I bet $200. He calls, I table my hand, and he shows 6-7 of spades, so I cool him off in this spot and take it down. 7-handed now. There are a couple limps. I decide to limp along from the cutoff with Queen 10 offsuit, and we go 5 ways to a flop of King Queen 5 two-tone. Early position bets $25. Hijack calls, I call from the cutoff, and small blind calls. Turn comes a 9 of spades, so I pick up the gut shot straight flush draw, and all 3 players check to me, and I check it back. River comes a jack of clubs, so I make the straight. Small blind bets $45. Other 2 players fold. I flick in the call, and he tables 5-8 offsuit for bottom pair, and I take it down with a straight. 7-handed again. There's an under the gun straddle of $15, button and small blind call. I'm in the big blind with ace king of clubs, premium here, so I raise it to $75, and only the button calls. And this button player is pretty splashy throughout the session. And when we go to a flop of king jack 6 rainbow, I see bet $80. He calls with roughly $250 behind. Turn comes a good blank 8 of spades. I jam for his $250 effective, and he pretty quickly lets it go. Hand immediately after, the big blind does not chop, so when it folds to me in the small blind with queen jack offsuit, I raise it to $15. Big blind calls, and we go to a flop of king 7-5 with 2 spades. Action checks through. Turn comes a king of spades, so I pick up the second nut flush draw and bet $20. He makes the call. River comes a 7 of clubs, double pairing the board. Queen high should be good here a decent chunk of the time, but in the event he has ace high, I bet $50. Should probably go larger if I'm trying to get him off ace high, but he ends up pretty quickly folding, so it means I probably had the best hand in this spot. Next hand here, it folds to me in the low jack, and I raise it to $20 with 3-5 of diamonds, and I get 3 callers, the hijack, button, and big blind. 4 ways to a flop of 6-5-4 two-tone, so I flop middle pair with the low end of the 2-way straight draw. Action checks through. Turn comes a deuce of spades, and big blind jams for $220, and this is the opponent that's been pretty splashy, so it's going to be hard to fold a straight even on a 3 flush board. So I make the call, and the other 2 players get out of the way. River comes a 10 of hearts, I table, and it's no good as he shows 7-8 offsuit for the flop nuts. A few more to run through to wrap up the session. I raise it to $20 from the hijack with king 8 of hearts and only the cutoff calls. We go to a flop of 5-3 deuce with 2 spades. Action checks through. Turn comes an 8 of diamonds. I bet $30 for value. He calls. River comes an ace of diamonds, and I consider a block bet, but I end up checking, and he bets $110. It feels like he might have rivered an ace on me, but I don't want to find out, so I decide to just let it go. 3-handed now. I raise it to $15 from the button with queen jack offsuit. Big blind defends. Heads up to a flop of queen 3-3 two-tone. He check calls my bet of $10. Turn comes a king of hearts, and action checks through on this card. River comes a 4 of hearts, and he bets $45. I ask if he turned me, to which he does not reply. Perhaps it's too narrow, but I put him on a hand such as king 7 suited through king 10 off, and I open fold my hand. He ends up showing ace 7 offsuit for the successful bluff. Shout out to Craig in this one who watches the vlog. Nice job bluffing me out on this one. Last hand of note, and it's once again against Craig from the previous hand. We were 4-handed. It's a straddle pot. Button calls. Craig in the small blind raises to $60. I'm in the big blind with ace 10 offsuit, and I decide to make a play and 3-bet it to $210. Folds back to small blind, and he calls. Heads up to a flop of ace jack jack with 2 spades. He check, and I check back for deception as I'm putting him on queens or kings. Turn comes a 9 of hearts, and now he bets $250. So it feels like one of 3 hands now. It's either kings or queens or ace king. I think he could just be betting queens and kings for the hell of it, to be honest, and I decided to just make the call. River comes a 10 of hearts. He bets $200, and now it's kind of just ace king more often than not. And for that price, I decided to look him up in the off chance that he does have one of the two aforementioned hands that I beat. Unfortunately, he tables ace king offsuit. So I picked a bad spot to make a play pre-flop, and it cost me quite a bit throughout the rest of this hand. All right, back in the city to wrap this one up. Unfortunately, it wasn't my best showing at Thunder Valley. Got in the game for $1,900, cashed out $1,223 to book a nearly $700 loss to wrap up the first session of 2021. Not the ideal way to start the year with a loss, but a lot of things to take away from this session. Didn't play well, obviously. A lot of hands were, and my approach were just outside of my typical construction, so I need to work on some of those things to get the fundamentals and the mechanics back in place. Obviously haven't played for a while with the shelter-in-place orders here in California, so game's gotten a little bit rusty, but good news is that Lucky Chances, my home court property, has reopened this past week, so I intend to put in a lot of volume back at that location, continue to get my game where it needs to be, and this is actually the time of year that I like to focus on prepping for the World Series of Poker. Obviously wasn't able to partake in the events last year, but I always use the first 5 months of the year, of course, to build towards the summer. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Hope to participate in the World Series of Poker this year, and at the very least, just try to play more poker this year. So with that, it's going to wrap this one up. I'd like to thank everyone for commenting, liking, subscribing, and I'll see you all on the next one.